Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
I was sitting on Caleb's sectional in Norwood, Cincinnati, where I've sat 100 times, and I said I'd smoke the turkey again this year. Orange brine like we used to. He didn't even look up from his phone. He just muttered, "Dad, Lena and her mom want a quieter Thanksgiving this time." I stared at him for a second. "You saying I'm not invited?" He kept scrolling, eyes low. "It's just, Lena's family has certain traditions. They want a calmer vibe this year." Right then, I knew. I wasn't part of the vibe, I wasn't part of the plan at all. Quick note. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. And let's continue. I looked around that living room, soaking it in. The quartz kitchen island. My money. The crib I built last spring in the corner. My hands. The fancy patio set Lena had to have for summer hosting. Yeah, also mine. I've been driving a city bus since I was 26. That's over 20 years of metro shifts, plus 3 nights a week on stadium cleanup down by the river. Not because I had to, but because I wanted Caleb and Lena to land this house. And they did, with my help. I refinanced my own place to cover their down payment, 36 grand and change. Then I sent 2 grand, 150 every month for 4 years. Another 12.5 on renovations when Lena couldn't stand the closed cabinets. And now I'm too loud for Thanksgiving. I said, "What kind of tradition cuts your father out after he carried you through every parade from age 3 to 15? He shifted, twisting his wedding ring. "It's not like that." "Maybe we can do something Friday." "Friday," I repeated, dead flat. "Yeah, sure. Like gratitude could be rescheduled. Like it was a dentist appointment. Diane's been gone 10 years. Thanksgiving was the one day that stayed the same. Just me and Caleb, ever since she passed. We'd make the bird, watch the game, argue about which team would choke in the fourth quarter. Nothing fancy, just ours. Now he won't even look at me. He stood up like that was the end of it. "It's just a lot this year, Dad." I'm trying to make it work. I stood too, slower. My joints aren't as fast as they used to be. "Yeah, I can see that." I didn't slam the door when I left. I thought about it, but I didn't. Outside, some guy across the street was blowing leaves into neat little lines, like order meant anything. The machine whined on while I stood by my car, staring at my cracked side mirror. Behind me was a house I helped pay for. Inside it was my son, choosing not to invite me to the one holiday we'd never missed. Nobody could tell from looking that a man just got benched from his own family's table. But I knew. My phone rang the next morning at 10:13 on the dot. I remember because I was halfway through scraping frost off my Civic's windshield with an expired AAA card when I heard her name buzz on the screen. Lena. I let it ring twice, 3 times. Then I answered, holding the phone between my shoulder and ear while I scraped the last corner of the glass. Her voice came through syrupy smooth, the way it always did when she was building up to a favor. "Adrian," she said, drawn out like she'd practiced it in the mirror. Not Dad. Not even Mr. Shaw. Just Adrian. Like we were business acquaintances. I didn't answer. Just stood there, letting cold air bite into my knuckles. She cleared her throat. "So, Caleb mentioned you were a little hurt yesterday. About Thanksgiving." I flicked frost off the card and said flat, "I was clear. He was clear. It's done." "Well," she said, like she was stepping around a puddle in heels, "it's not that you're not wanted. It's just, this year, we're curating a certain feel for the gathering." I laughed once, dry, not loud. "What feel is that exactly? What kind of vibe kicks a man out of his own son's table?" There was a pause, just long enough to let me know she wasn't ready for me to push back. Then she said, careful and polite, "My mother's friends are professionals. They're lawyers, board members. They prefer quieter conversation. Not, bus stories." That one landed. "My bus stories are about making sure kids get to school and women don't freeze waiting in the dark," I said. "They're about people trying to get somewhere." She gave a tight little laugh. "That's sweet, Adrian. It really is. But it's not relevant dinner talk. Not relevant, I repeated. Okay. She must have heard the shift in my voice because she jumped in fast. It's not personal. We just want to create a space that reflects where we are now. Caleb and I are building something stable, something refined. Refined, I said. You mean quiet, polished, easy to manage. She sighed like I was being difficult on purpose. Carol thinks your food is a little heavy and your music's too loud. And honestly, we don't want to have to mediate another story about transit union disputes in front of people who look down their nose at men who work for a living. That's not fair, she snapped. You're twisting my words. No, I said, voice steady. You said them just fine. There was a long silence. I didn't fill it. I've learned that people like Lena hate silence more than anything. She cracked first. Adrian, look, this isn't about value. We're not saying you're less than, just different. That's all. That word, different, it itched under my skin. Like I was a bad fit, a leftover part from the wrong box. You remember when Caleb was out of work 3 years ago? I said. When I stocked your pantry, paid the electric, bought diapers? I remember. You remember when Carol was too tired to drive you and the baby home from the hospital, and I showed up at midnight in the snow? That was kind of you, but I didn't wait for the rest. I hit the red button mid-sentence. I walked back inside and sat down at the kitchen table, still wearing my coat. Pulled out my phone again, opened the banking app. There it was, staring me in the face like it had every month for 4 years. Auto transfer scheduled. $2,150 on the 15th. 15th. Like clockwork. For 4 years. I stared at it until the screen went dark. Then I tapped it awake and stared again. There's a kind of stupid that doesn't make you yell or punch a wall. It just sits heavy in your jaw, in your shoulders, like wet denim. I felt every bit of it. I wasn't just cut out of Thanksgiving. I was funding the table they didn't want me sitting at. Forks, chairs, wine glasses, all paid for by me. My story wasn't good enough for dinner, but my direct deposit made sure they had somewhere to eat. And the way she said Adrian, like I was a tenant behind on rent instead of the reason that house existed, that stuck. I leaned back and looked around my kitchen. Laminate counters I never upgraded because the money went elsewhere. Stove with one burner taped off with a sticky note. Don't use... Clicks weird. I'd put off fixing it for 2 years. I thought about calling Caleb, asking him straight out if this was what he wanted. But I didn't. I knew the answer already. He wanted peace. Lena's kind of peace. The kind where you don't invite trouble, even if it raised you. I reached for my wallet and slid out the little blue card from the credit union on Ridge. The number was printed right under the logo. My thumb hovered over the call button. Not yet. Instead, I stood up, poured myself a cup of black coffee, and sat back down, watching the second hand tick around the microwave clock. 10:38. I waited for my hands to stop shaking before I made the call. I waited till the coffee went cold. Then I called the credit union on Ridge. The hold music was a soft piano loop that repeated every 40 seconds, and it made me want to hang up 3 different times. But I didn't. I sat there, elbow on the table, thumb pressed into my temple. When a woman finally picked up, she sounded too cheerful for the day I was about to have. Riverside Federal, this is Tanya speaking. How can I help you today? My name's Adrian Shaw. I need to cancel a recurring mortgage transfer, I said. Okay, mister. Shaw, let's pull that up, she said, still chipper. Can you confirm the last 4 of the account the transfer goes to? I gave her the numbers and the transfer date. 15th of the month, like always. She pulled it up fast. Yes, I see that here. It's been active since, wow, looks like January 4 years ago. $2,150 monthly. You'd like to cancel? That's right. She read the routing number back. careful and slow. Effective immediately. Today, I said. She didn't ask why, and I was glad for that. My palm was already slick with sweat, like I'd just quit a job I'd never gotten paid for. Once I hung up, I didn't move for a minute. Just stared at the wall where the paint was peeling near the window trim. Then I stood, walked over to the little file cabinet in the corner, and pulled every statement I'd saved. I printed the rest at the library 2 hours later. I didn't care who was behind me in line. I printed every damn page. 48 payments at $2,150. Down payment wire, $36,500. Riverstone cabinets, $12,500. The smaller ones hurt more, $60 here, $200 there, $300 in emergency formula, $700 for a car repair Caleb never got around to, utilities, groceries, baby wipes. Total, $162,800. That was the number. I circled it in red ink like a teacher grading my own stupidity. No retirement account, no stocks. Just a used smoker grill rusting on the patio and a Civic with a cracked mirror from where I backed into a pole the same week Lena urgently needed the nursery painted coral. I didn't shred the paperwork. I didn't burn it either, tempting as it was. Instead, I drove to Office Depot and bought a black 3-ring binder, thick and plain. On the spine, I slid in a label I wrote by hand. What I did. Then I punched holes in every sheet and filed them in order. Lined them up like evidence. Set it on my bookshelf where I'd see it every morning. That was my record now. Not a thank you card. Not a framed photo. A binder. At 3:41, my supervisor at Metro texted about the early snow route meeting next week. You in? It said. I texted back, wouldn't miss it. Because I never missed them. Because being dependable is one thing nobody could take from me. On the way home, I stopped by the Union Hall on Guest Street. Nobody was really around except one guy smoking out front. I walked straight to the pamphlet wall and grabbed the slim blue one. Documenting harassment, a driver's guide. I didn't need it, but I took it anyway. Just a thought. I went home, changed into my Navy Stadium gear, and headed out for the night shift. Cold air clung to the inside of my sleeves while I loaded cones and set barriers in Lot D. It was quiet, mostly. The kind of quiet where your thoughts don't stop. They just loop. I kept thinking about how long it takes to teach someone not to need you, and how fast they forget what it cost. At 1:14 a.m., I stopped behind the supply shed and pulled my phone out of my pocket. I took a picture of my hands. No filter, no light fix. Just the raw shot. Cracked knuckles, skin peeling at the sides, dirt under my nails even after the gloves. I wanted to remember what it looked like to carry someone else's life for 4 straight years. Not for proof. For myself. Because next time I thought about going soft, about feeling bad, I needed to remember this moment exactly. Not the hurt. The cost. 2 days later, I was back from my early shift and standing in the kitchen peeling an orange when my phone rang again. Lena. I answered, knowing damn well she wouldn't be calling just to talk. Hey, she said, brisk and clipped. My parents land at CVG at 2:30. Caleb's at work. I'm cooking. You'll pick them up? She didn't even wait for a response. Just rolled right through it like it was already confirmed. United 2345. Baggage claim B. I wiped my fingers on a paper towel and leaned against the counter. Sure, I said slowly. Got it written down. I didn't. I said it like a man writing down a test he had no intention of showing up for. She said, Thanks, Adrian. Then hung up before I could say anything else. No, please. No, sorry for how things went down. Just business. Cold and smooth. At 2:30 on the dot, I was nowhere near the airport. I was at my kitchen table, same spot I always sat, drinking lukewarm store-brand tea out of a chipped mug that said "Number 1 Dad," and watching some high school football replay on local cable. 2 teams I didn't care about. I watched anyway. My phone buzzed on the table every 5 minutes. I let it. Buzz, buzz, buzz. I didn't move. I didn't even look. Just kept sipping and watching the grainy footage of a missed field goal. By 3:40, the buzzing turned into calls. One came in from an unknown number with an 859 area code. Carol's number, probably. I let it ring. Then again. Then again. By the fourth call, I put the phone on the counter, screen down, and went to warm up a slice of leftover meatloaf. I was mid-bite when someone started pounding on my front door like the house was on fire. I stood, walked slow, and opened it to a trio that looked like the cover of a bad suburban drama. Carol was out front in a camel coat with gold buttons, shoulders squared like she ran the place. Her husband Dean stood behind her, face blotchy red like he'd been holding in a yell since the tarmac. And Lena, last in the lineup, stood off to the side, mascara smudged, arms crossed, not meeting my eyes. Carol didn't wait for an invite. She stepped right in, heels clicking like gunshots on my linoleum. Dean followed close behind. "You humiliated us," she snapped, voice shaking just enough to show the cracks. "We waited over an hour outside baggage claim. You agreed to pick us up?" I stepped back just enough to let them see the thermostat glowing orange on the wall. 49 degrees. Not warm, sure, but not a blizzard either. Just a normal Ohio November. "You'll live," I said. "You're welcome." Lena stepped inside next, still not speaking. She didn't even look up. Dean puffed up beside Carol like a bulldog protecting its leash. "Do you know who we are?" he barked. I nodded, leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Yeah, you're the family that keeps me out of my own family." Carol turned on her heel and jabbed a finger at me. "This attitude is exactly why we didn't want you involved this year. You're unpredictable. You make scenes, and you make schedules for other people's fathers like they're your driver," I said. "You want predictability? Order an Uber." Next time Lena finally opened her mouth. "Adrian, can we just calm down for a second?" "You don't get to ask for calm," I cut in. "Not after all that." Dean scoffed. "All what? A missed ride from the airport?" "Grow up," I laughed. One short burst, sharp and bitter. "You think this is about the airport? You really believe that?" Carol stepped toward me, eyes narrowed. "You are dangerously close to losing any remaining goodwill we've extended. I don't care what you've paid for. This isn't your house to run." That's when I lost the last sliver of patience I had. "This is my house," I said, loud and sharp. "My name's on the deed. My name's on the bills. Every inch of this place got built while I was pulling double shifts to make sure your daughter could host brunches with her brass flatware and mood lighting." Carol flinched, but I wasn't done. "You walk in here without asking, yell at me in my kitchen after deciding I'm not good enough to be part of Thanksgiving?" Dean raised his voice. "You're twisting everything. It's not about you being not good enough. It's about Lena and Caleb creating their own space. Their future. Funny," I said. "Their future's built on my past. My sweat. My bank account," Lena tried again. Softer this time. "Adrian, you said yes to the airport. You can't agree to things and then—" "I can when you treat me like a footnote." "Like a transaction," I said. "You want my time, my money, my help, but not my presence. Not my voice." Nobody answered that. I stepped aside and pointed to the front door. "You've said what you came to say. Now get out." Dean didn't move. Carol crossed her arms like she thought she could win something by standing still. Lena looked at her shoes. I said, "Get out." They turned, one by one. Carol went first, huffing like she'd been robbed. Dean followed with a muttered, "This is ridiculous." And Lena, last again, glanced up at me just once. Her eyes were wet, but I didn't care. I shut the door behind them, locked it, and stood there, hands on the frame, forehead against the wood. I didn't feel good, didn't feel victorious, but I did feel clear. And that was something. The next morning, my phone buzzed at 7:42 a.m. I was halfway through frying eggs when the screen lit up. Trudy. HOA. I figured it was another dumb notice about recycling bins or leaf pickup. Instead, it was a screenshot. The message underneath just read, "Thought you should see this before it spreads." I already flagged it. The post was from the Hyde Park Neighbors Facebook group. Title said, "Local bus driver leaves elderly couple stranded at CVG in holiday cold. Unreliable and aggressive. Beware attached" was my Metro badge photo. My actual work? ID. Somebody had pulled it off LinkedIn or God knows where and slapped it right on the post like it was a wanted sign. The caption under the photo read, "This man left my parents, both in their 60s, waiting over an hour outside baggage claim in 49-degree weather. He agreed to pick them up. He's loud, unstable, and has a temper. Should not be working in public safety. Number safety number transit. Fail. Number Thanksgiving mess. No name attached. Just concerned neighbor," with a sunflower icon. But I didn't need a signature to know who wrote it. I stared at that post for a good minute, fists tightening around the phone. Then I screenshotted it myself and saved it to my camera roll, just in case it vanished later. At 10:05, HR called. I was on my second cup of coffee when the number from Metro came in. I answered on speaker while digging my boots out of the closet. "Mr. Shaw, this is Diane from HR," the voice said, flat and official. "We need you to come in for a fit-for-duty check. There was an anonymous complaint submitted this morning regarding your conduct on Route 17. I didn't say anything at first, just listened. "They claimed you were slurring your words and smelled of alcohol," she continued. "Standard protocol. We need you at the clinic by 11 o'clock. I said, "I'll be there in 20. At the clinic, I blew zeros into the breathalyzer like I was blowing out birthday candles. The nurse didn't even flinch. She looked bored. "Seen this kind of crap before," she muttered as she handed me a water bottle. "Usually it's someone trying to mess with a union guy." I nodded. "Yep, sounds about right. Back at Metro HQ, I met with my union rep, Marquis Holloway. He was waiting with a folder already in hand. Anonymous complaint came through the city portal and from a Gmail," he said, flipping it open. "cwhitman@gmail.com. Not exactly subtle. They tagged your badge number and your full name. Didn't even scrub the metadata. I looked down at the sheet he handed me. There it was. Whitman68@gmail.com, submitted at 7:14 a.m. Same morning the Facebook post went live. Marcus shook his head and leaned in, voice low. "We've seen it before. Rich in-laws who think they can play corporate hardball. Don't worry, we'll squash it. HR has to go through the motions, but you're clean." I didn't nod. I didn't smile. I just stared at that email. I wasn't surprised. Not even a little. But I was mad. Not the kind of mad that makes you shout or throw things. This was the kind that settled low in your back, hard and steady, like a weight that wasn't leaving. Clean, focused anger, cold enough to think straight, sharp enough to cut. On lunch break, I stopped at the admin desk and asked for a printed copy of the complaint file. They gave me the full packet, stamped and signed. I flipped to the metadata page and saw the timestamp circled. 7:14 a.m., November 25th. I took it straight to the library after my shift, hole punched it, and slid it into the back of the binder I'd labeled "What I Did." It fit perfectly behind the payment records, like it belonged there. Later that afternoon, I drove Route 4 past the stadium, my usual shift. Still had some salt from the pre-winter treatment on the asphalt. Every time I stopped, I scanned the sidewalks. Fathers holding kids' hands, teenagers yelling across crosswalks, a grandpa pushing a stroller. I watched them without meaning to, like I was trying to see how they moved through their own lives. Nobody looked over their shoulder. Nobody seemed worried about being erased or replaced. I realized I'd spent too long letting other people draw the lines in mine. They told me where to show up, when to pay, what to say, what not to say. They let me in only when it made them look good, and shut the door when I started asking why. They told me I was different. Now I was aggressive. Soon I'd be unstable if I didn't shut up and smile. But not this time. This time I'd keep the records. This time I'd follow the trail. This time I wouldn't let them bury the facts behind fake politeness and country club language. The smear didn't scare me. It just made the next move easier. That night, I sat down at my desk, turned on the old task lamp Diane bought me before she passed, and opened Lena's Instagram on my work tablet. Her account was public, like always, curated like a glossy magazine for people she didn't even know. I started saving photos one by one. There was one from last spring. Lena smiling with a glass of wine in hand, standing in front of the backsplash I paid for. Marble tiles I didn't pick, but financed anyway. Another showed a wide shot of the kitchen, the open shelving, the imported rug she had to have, and a caption that read, "So grateful for our home." Every detail, intentional, yeah. My intentions, my dollars. I downloaded all of them: Easter brunch, wine nights, book clubs, even a baby shower with Carol holding cord in the center like she owned the house. She probably thought she did. Then I opened Caleb's LinkedIn. It hadn't been updated in months, but I noticed a new connection that stuck out. Rhonda Gray, administrator of the Hyde Park Neighbors Facebook group, also COO at the bank where Dean's a regional director. Small world or just a connected one? I clicked through Rhonda's page. Mutuals with Carol. That was enough to confirm what I already knew. The Facebook hit job wasn't some random post. It was a move, a play. Next, I went hunting for Carol's nonprofit, the Whitman Arts Circle. Sounds classy, right? On the state registry, it was listed as a 501c3, active status. I pulled their IRS form 990 from last year. Line item that caught my eye. Travel and events, $31,200. That was the same year she posted photos from Santorini. Wide shots of cliffs, ocean views, matching wide-brimmed hats. I saved all of those too. Then I moved on to the HOA newsletters. Trudy had a folder on her porch labeled Archives. She let me dig through once when they were looking for an old roofing vendor. I still had a few of them scanned on my laptop. One was a fall update from 3 years ago. Carol listed herself as Community Standards Liaison. Another newsletter from winter showed she was behind the new no street parking after midnight rule. Funny how her Lexus was always parked in front of her house overnight anyway. Every piece I found, I saved. No screenshots. Full-page PDFs. I wasn't playing amateur hour. Then I opened my messages and found Lena's text, the one from before the ban. Your stories aren't dinner talk. Not for this group. I clipped that and saved it next to the Facebook smear. Then I remembered something else. An old voice memo I'd recorded while testing out a pocket recorder I bought on clearance. I used to mess around with it during routes to record shift notes. 6 months back, Lena had called me while I was driving. I'd forgotten I hit record that day. I found the file, pressed play, and sure enough, there it was. We just need him for big expenses. He doesn't care about the other stuff. Her voice, crystal clear, arrogant as hell. By midnight, I had a folder so dense it needed a table of contents. Then I paid $42 for a public records report on the deed to Caleb and Lena's house. I thought it had come back with both their names. I really did. But when the PDF popped up, there was only one name listed as owner. Lena Whitman. No Caleb. I sat back in my chair and let that hit me straight in the gut. After everything, after the down payment, the monthly transfers, the renovations, the bills, that house didn't even legally belong to my son. They let me believe it was theirs together. They let me think I was building something for my family. Turned out I was just funding Carol's daughter's asset while Caleb stood in the corner with a baby monitor and a nervous laugh. I didn't say a word, just saved the file, printed it, and added it to the growing stack. I didn't sleep that night. I worked. I laid out 13 folders on my dining table. 1 for Lena, 12 for the Thanksgiving guests I knew would be there. Her friends, Carol's circle, Dean's colleagues, a couple of HOA loyalists. I checked names off against the Instagram tags. Each folder had copies of the following: the payment records, screenshots of Lena's posts, the Facebook smear and HR complaint, Carol's nonprofit expenses, the HOA parking favoritism, a full timeline, start to finish. The voice memo stayed on a flash drive clipped to my keys. I planned to play it in person. Around 4 a.m., I walked to my closet and pulled out the navy shirt I hadn't touched in 10 years. The one I wore to Diane's memorial. It still fit, a little tighter in the shoulders, but clean. I ironed it slow, pressed every crease flat. I didn't plan to yell. I didn't need to. I just needed to be heard. Then I opened the drawer next to my bed and grabbed the tiny recorder I'd used on bus shifts. I taped it under my belt, dead center, microphone up. The last thing I did was sit down at the table, look at all 13 folders stacked like court exhibits, and whisper to myself, let's see how they like the full story. Thanksgiving Day. 6:28 p.m. I parked 2 houses down, next to a dented mailbox and a patchy front lawn someone forgot to rake. The street was full, cars lining both sides, headlights still warm. I killed the engine and sat still for a second, breathing through my nose, watching the house. Through the wide front window, I saw Carol pouring wine like she was hosting a segment on daytime TV. Her laugh carried, fake and bright. Lena stood next to her, smiling too hard, hand clenched around the stem of a champagne flute. Every move rehearsed. The front door swung open just as a cousin stepped out for a smoke, laughing into his phone. I didn't rush. Just timed my steps with his and slipped in right behind him. Clean, quiet. Felt like luck. The warmth of the house hit me first. Overheated, overlit, packed too tight with people wearing coats inside because nobody wanted to leave their spot at the table. I moved through the entryway with my briefcase in hand and stopped just shy of the dining room. The table was long, set for 12. Cream plates with brass flatware, linen napkins folded like hotel towels. Carol's touch, no doubt. No one saw me right away. I stood there for a beat. Then I cleared my throat. Heads turned. Conversations slowed. Wine glasses paused mid-air. I stepped in fully, walked to the buffet table, and set my briefcase down gently. My voice was steady, sharp. I won't stay long. Lena moved fast. Adrian, she said, breath catching, this isn't, please don't do this. I turned toward her. Don't do what? Carol stepped between us, hands raised like a traffic cop. This is private family time. You're not invited. I nodded. You made it public 2 ways. First, the Facebook group smear. Second, the HR hit job. Nobody said a word. I opened the briefcase and started laying down the packets, one at each seat, right in front of each guest. I figured since I wasn't good enough for dinner talk, I'd just bring the facts. The rustle of paper started slow, uncertain fingers opening folders, flipping pages. Then it caught like a wave. Chairs shifted, brows furrowed. A couple people leaned back in their seats. I pulled the flash drive from my pocket and held up my phone. There's audio too, just a short one. From a call 6 months ago, I hit play. Lena's voice came through, clear as glass. We just need him for big expenses. He doesn't care about the other stuff. Someone gasped, the kind people do when they're not sure it's okay to react yet. I didn't look at Caleb. I watched Carol. Her jaw locked like it was wired shut. One of the guests, a woman I didn't recognize, put her hand over her mouth. Someone else muttered, "Wow," under their breath. I reached into the packet at my own place and pulled out the deed printout. I held it up, reading aloud. Legal owner of the property at 1942 Colonial Avenue, Lena Whitman. No cosign, no co-owner. Caleb, you knew? Caleb stammered. I thought it was temporary. Just for credit reasons, Carol cut in, voice clipped and fast. It's cleaner for taxes. That's all a guest down the table, older guy, red sweater, thinning hair, asked, cleaner or easier to control? Another voice jumped in, Mike Lawrence, HOA president's husband. Carol, did your nonprofit pay for those Santorini arts photos? I recognize that cliffside. It wasn't cheap. Carol reached for her wine glass and missed the first time. Her fingers brushed the stem, knocked it sideways, caught it just before it tipped. Dean tried to laugh, loud and awkward. Let's not turn Thanksgiving into a courtroom. This is all... No, I cut in, stepping forward. Let's. Because I've sat through 10 Thanksgivings carving the turkey with these hands while covering your mortgage. I paid for that backsplash, that rug under your feet, the damn wine in your glasses. I pointed at each of them, one by one. I was good enough when it was time for down payments and emergency calls and grocery runs. But not good enough for dinner. Not good enough to be seen. Lena looked like she wanted to cry, but I didn't care. Not here. Not now. I'm not here to get back in, I said. I'm here to show what getting used looks like. And what the end of it sounds like. Carol finally found her voice. You're bitter. Vindictive, I stared at her. Boundaries look like vengeance to people who've lived off you. No one argued with that. Someone started reading the timeline in the packet out loud. Caleb's name kept showing up next to bank transfers and late payments I covered. I didn't flinch. I wanted them to hear it all. A woman at the far end looked up from her folder. You mean to say he's been paying your mortgage this whole time? Lena said nothing. Just looked down at her plate like it might save her. I took one last glance around the table, then zipped the briefcase shut. You can finish dinner, I said. You just won't finish it thinking I'm the fool. I turned and walked back through the hallway, every step slow and quiet. Nobody tried to stop me. As I reached the front door, I heard one voice behind me. Female, strong, clear. You owe him an apology. I didn't turn to see who said it. I didn't need to. On the porch, the cold felt cleaner than the heat inside. I heard Carol hiss, "Delete the group post." Now someone else whispered, "Too late. Screenshots." I hadn't even reached the first step off the porch when I heard Dean's voice from inside, trying too hard to sound casual. This is all a misunderstanding. He's just emotional. I'm sure the numbers aren't accurate. He hadn't read page 2. Inside, someone flipped the page, paper sliding over paper. Then a woman, one of Carol's garden club friends, I think, read aloud like she was in a board meeting. $162,800, that's the total. Says it right here. Silence after that, the kind that doesn't breathe. Then a neighbor, Todd, from 3 streets over, HOA's treasurer, cleared his throat. I'm sorry. I just want to understand. This man paid for your house, your renovations, your bills, and you didn't invite him to Thanksgiving? No one answered, just forks being set down, chair legs shifting. Lena's bracelet clinked against her wine glass as she reached for it. I heard more pages flipping, someone whispering, "This is bad," and the distinct sound of a phone camera shutter, someone taking pictures of the packet. That's when I turned back around. I stepped back through the door just far enough for them to hear me, and pulled out the final sheet from my folder. This one didn't make it into all the packets, I said, holding it up. It's a printout from HR at Metro Transit. A copy of the anonymous complaint filed against me for smelling like alcohol on Route 17. Lena stood up, face white. I continued, slow and clear. The email used was c.whitman68@gmail.com. The timestamp matches the morning the Facebook post went up. You remember that one? Safety concern, aggressive behavior, elderly couple abandoned. I paused and held up the note from Marquis, clipped to the complaint. Dismissed. Union cleared. I dropped the paper on the table near Carol's plate. Try that again, and I'll involve counsel. And I promise you I won't be the one embarrassed next time. Carol leaned back in her chair like she'd been slapped. Her face was unreadable, but her hands trembled slightly as she folded the paper. You're vindictive, she said, low and sharp, like she thought that was the worst thing she could call me. I didn't blink. When you treat someone like a resource, their no will always sound like revenge. Caleb finally spoke. His voice was softer than usual, stripped down. I didn't mean to cut you out, Dad. I felt pressure. There were things Lena wanted, and I didn't want to fight. That landed heavier than anything else he'd said in months. It was the first honest sentence that sounded like my son. I nodded once. I believe you. Then I turned to the table, looked around at the people still clutching their packets like court subpoenas. I won't be paying for one more fork in the drawer. Not a napkin, not a patch of grass, not a gallon of gas. That part of my life is over. I turned to Caleb. You're still my son. You always will be. But being your father doesn't mean I'll bankroll disrespect. He looked down at his plate, not ashamed, just tired. Maybe something was breaking open in his head for the first time. Maybe not. Either way, I said what I came to say. As I stepped back toward the front door, I heard the murmurs again. One man asked for an extra copy. Another woman said, "This explains a lot." And then one voice, female, firm, familiar. I think it was Mrs. Lawrence. "You should apologize to him, publicly." I didn't turn to see who she meant. I just walked out, straight onto the porch, same steps I came in on. Cold air hit my skin like a reset button. The heat inside felt far behind me already. Behind me, I heard Carol's voice, low and furious. "Get that post taken down, immediately." Then a younger voice whispered, loud enough to carry, "It's already all over the HOA chat." I walked back to my car 2 houses down, started the engine, and watched their porch lights flicker in the side mirror. Nobody came after me. Not one of them. By the second week of January, word had made its way through the HOA grapevine. Trudy forwarded me an email thread that started with, "Carol Whitman will be taking a pause from her committee duties for personal reasons." No apology, no explanation, just a pause, like she was taking a vacation from consequence. I checked the Whitman Art Circle site 2 days later. The travel highlights page was gone. No more Santorini sunsets, no more gala pics with fake sponsors and borrowed art. Just a homepage with a bland mission statement and a contact form nobody would answer. I didn't smile. I didn't even feel much. Just clicked close on the browser and went back to my book. In February, Caleb started calling. 10 times in less than 3 weeks. I didn't block him. I just didn't pick up. Not because I was angry, because I wasn't ready. Then March 12th rolled around. A Tuesday. Cold wind. Gray sky. I opened my mailbox and saw the green slip through the window of the envelope before I even touched it. Certified mail. My name, printed sharp, sent from Pinnacle Mortgage Solutions. I already knew what it was. 2 days later, he showed up at my door with the exact same letter in his hand. His face was pale and tight, like he hadn't slept in a week. He didn't knock, just rang the bell and waited, holding the envelope like it might bite him. I opened the door and stepped aside. He came in without a word, sat at the kitchen table like he used to when he was 15 and had something to confess. I sat across from him, same spot as always. He pushed the envelope toward me. "Notice of default," he said. 3 missed payments. We're $64.50 behind. 21 days to fix it. I didn't touch the paper. I just asked, "We?" He looked down at the table. "Lena and me." I shook my head once. "There is no we on this deed." I pulled the report. "Your name's not on it?" He flinched, just barely, but enough to tell me he knew. "She said it was because of a credit glitch," he mumbled. "Something that would slow down underwriting. Carol told us it was safer, cleaner, just temporary." I leaned forward. "You ever ask if that glitch was her wanting total control?" He didn't answer. I got up, poured 2 mugs of coffee and handed him one. He wrapped his hands around it like they were cold. "I forgave you a long time ago," I said, "for choosing comfort over respect, for going along with things you knew weren't right. But forgiveness doesn't come with a wire transfer." He didn't argue. He just nodded and stared into the cup. After a minute, he wiped his face with the back of his hand. 1 tear, silent. Not dramatic, just a quiet loss finally showing. "I'm looking for a second job now," he said. "Evenings, weekends, whatever I can get." I didn't say a thing about how I'd worked doubles for years to keep him afloat. I didn't say a word about split shifts and holidays on the bus and stadium cleanup at 1 a.m. I didn't need to. He already knew. He stood up, folded the letter, and slid it into his coat. At the door, he paused. "That night, watching you stand up in there, it was embarrassing, sure. I won't lie. But I was proud too. I nodded once. Good. Use that pride the right way. November rolled around again before I even noticed. One minute I was sweating through late summer bus shifts, the next I was hauling leaves off the back porch and switching the thermostat to heat. I turned 49 that week. Knee felt better. Those stretches the clinic nurse showed me finally started working. I still limped a little first thing in the morning, but it didn't bite the way it used to. I picked up an extra Sunday route. Not because I needed the money, but because I liked the silence of early morning. The kind where nothing's moving yet, and you've got the city to yourself. 2 weeks before the holiday, I found a used offset smoker online for $40.20 even. Black metal, rust along one leg, but it worked. I rolled it into the yard like it was a flag planted in new ground. That money, it used to go towards someone else's backsplash. Now it bought me meat, smoke, and something real. I didn't send out formal invites, just told folks as I saw them. Trudy and her husband from next door came by with rolls and folding chairs. A couple guys from the depot brought coleslaw and cheap beer. Marquis showed up with his 2 boys and a stack of grocery store pies. No linen napkins, no forced smiles. I kept it small and loud. On purpose. We had music playing from an old Bluetooth speaker and smoke curling up from the grill like it knew where it was supposed to be. Somebody's kid kept trying to sneak extra cornbread off the tray, and I let him. At 11:07 a.m., my phone buzzed. Caleb. Dad, can I swing by after work? I stared at the text for a second, then wrote back, yes. Address hasn't changed. He showed up around 6. Gray hoodie, eyes tired, holding a store-bought pie in a plastic clamshell. He stepped over the extension cord on the porch, nodded at Marquis, and slipped inside without needing directions. He found the trash bag by the back door and swapped it out without being told. Ate a plate of ribs with his sleeves rolled up. Laughed when someone cracked a joke about HOA drama. Didn't complain once. That was new. Later, after most folks had said goodnight and the kids were in someone's minivan playing with empty soda cans, we sat on the front steps in quiet, the kind that didn't ask anything from you. He looked out at the street and said, Lena's with her mom. For now, I didn't react, didn't poke it. I just said, if you want to rebuild something that's yours, I'm here. But I won't help patch up something that never was, you understand? He nodded. Yeah, I do. I didn't ask what he was planning. That wasn't mine to manage anymore. I leaned back, rested my elbows on the step behind me, and watched the last ribbons of smoke lift into the cold air. It curled over the rooftops, slow and soft, and disappeared. For a long time, I thought love meant paying for someone else's life, fixing the gaps, making sure they had what I never did. Now I think love starts when you pay attention to your own. Would you cut off funding to family who disrespects you? Tell me in the comments, please like and subscribe. It's huge for us. 1 click for you.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.